Many students are graduating next year, and many are feeling the pressures of paying for university. What will you do to help students afford a quality education without going into huge amounts of debt? Let's start with Mr. Toner.
Sure. Okay, so the question is, what are we going to do to help students that are moving into university? Well, probably as most of you folks know, one of the biggest and more recent challenges people like you face is student debt. Because you're graduating from university with, uncertain prospects nowadays, the world economy's changed. And now you're increasingly saddled with debt, 20, 30, 40,000. And that's a heck of a way to start your lives. So one thing our party has done is we've looked at this and said we need to create opportunities for you folks. We need to make sure you get a fast start. So we've looked at putting $100 million into training, into grant programs for students that are in post-secondary education. Because we think that's the best thing we can do. It's one of the best ways we can spend societal money to give you folks the best shot. And that's what makes our society better, is when the next generation has the best chance. Now I know that Andrew's going to challenge me on where that money's coming from, and that's okay. What we're doing is reinstituting a tax on banks that was in place in 2008, it was pulled out during the recession. We're putting it back in to basically help you folks get ahead, and that's what the NDP is going to do.
Okay, I'll go next. Well, I'm pleased to advise that British Columbia has the 4th lowest tuition in the country. And since my son, who's in the front row here, is now at the University of Toronto, I can tell you that a year of post-secondary education out of city will cost you about $20,000 in Canada. A year of post-secondary education, if you're living at home, is probably in the range of about $10,000. So what we've done is provide $2.9 billion in financial aid for students since 2001. 0 interest on student loans while you're a full-time student. And it's interesting, if you look in the NDP materials that Mr. Toner just referred to, the student grant program they're talking about, $100 million, divided out by 400,000 students in the province, comes to $250 each. If you've got a $10,000 or $20,000 bill each year, $250 isn't going to take you very far. So they say they've created a new scholarship fund. Well, that's $50 per student. So we're trying to focus on available spaces. Under the NDP, the available class spaces and the ability to finish degrees was severely constrained because there weren't enough places at universities. We created 32,000 more spaces so that you can go to uni if you want to.
Thank you. Mr. Clarke?
Sounds like the best idea is to have rich parents. I guess you all agree with that. Okay. The student loan program is already in place, and the present government has done a good job of expanding education financing. What will the Conservative government do? I can't say that we would be able to do much more than is already in place. There we are. Sorry, I can't say anymore.
So once you graduate with your undergrad, your grad, your PhD, BC has the highest tuition interest rates, so student loan interest rates in Canada. So the Green Party is focused on that. When we elect representatives, we will advocate to lower that interest rate. About 35% of 18 to 24-year-olds do not pursue higher education due to financial barriers. So the Green Party will increase the core funding to colleges and universities by $200 million, and we will immediately reduce tuition fees by 20%. So one of our best candidates is Andrew Weaver in Victoria. He has a Nobel Peace Prize. He shared winning a Nobel Peace Prize. So we really believe that he's a prophet UVic. So when he gets in there, we will have an excellent chance to advocate for you and for the next generation.
So now you can go into a 1-minute rebuttal on this topic. Starting now.
Well, I'm happy to use any time available to say to all of you that opportunity for you matters a great deal. You've got to think in terms of 5 or 7 or 10 years from now where you want this province to be. I did one of these sessions at Churchill about 6 months ago, And I was surprised how many students expected to leave the province. And that was for the long term. Perhaps it was family connections, perhaps it was other purposes. But we've got to remember that British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Australia have been about the only jurisdictions in the developed world to avoid the major recession of the last 4 or 5 years. That's because of BC Liberal management of the economy and the kind of opportunities we talked about that you can enjoy.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next question right now. It's just that for the next rebuttal, what's going to happen is that there's 30 seconds or a minute for each of you guys to talk all at once. So what's going to happen is that actually for the next question, do you guys all have a mic? You don't, right? So you have a mic? Okay, so you guys all talk at the rebuttal.
He wants us to argue.
Yes.
I disagree, sir.
So we're going to move on to our next question right now. As you probably know, Vancouver's prices of things such as houses have soared within the past couple of years. What will you do for our generation's future economy in terms of making Vancouver a desirable place for us to live? So, Mr. Wilkinson, we'll start with you. Yes, we're going to go down.
Yeah, most of you probably live in the school catchment, and you're now somewhere between 14 and 18-year-old, I guess. And so you've grown up in a world where $1 million house is no surprise. Perhaps you don't know how much houses cost around here, but you cannot buy a piece of property in this neighborhood with dirt, a single-family dwelling, for less than $1.5 million, and a lot of them are $3 million and up. That's a new thing. And that only came about because of changes in the world economy in the early part of the last decade. So housing affordability is a serious problem in this neighborhood, and there are not many young people moving in. The only thing we can offer you is not to drive down the cost of housing or the price of housing, because that leads to a lot of very angry people who've lost the value of their house. Rather, we can offer you the kinds of opportunities to earn your way into the future and to have the kind of prosperity that will lead you to be able to afford the housing prices here. They will eventually drift down, because if we can't afford them, who can? Thank you.
Well, Andrew raises a good point. He talks about how housing prices are very sticky downwards. We're not likely to see a big deflation here in the city. In fact, we should hope we don't. So that gives us a bit of a challenge. This is a recent problem. And in my riding, which is downtown, we don't have these big luxurious homes that we have out here in this district. We have a lot of small condos stacked one on top of each other. And a lot of folks moved into those condos thinking they'd be a first home, and they would move out to the suburbs and raise their families. Well, when the housing market changed, and this wasn't just an international problem, some parts of it were made in Canada, those people were basically stuck in their condos. So now they're living in very small places with no schools, no proper amenities. It's a bit of a trap for us. So again, what we're focusing on is creating opportunities. We have to grow our way out of this problem. And the jobs that I'm most interested in creating are high-tech jobs. They're clean, they're green, they're sustainable, they're fun, they're well-paid, and we're pretty good at them here in Vancouver. So if we can start to embrace that part of our economy, start to create those kinds of opportunities for people like you, we'll see if we can turn that curve around, and we can start to make this place more affordable. Because right now, I used to live in New York. The places here are more expensive than places in Manhattan. That's got to change.
Yes, housing prices in these neighborhoods are awful. And they're going to stay there. So what do you do? I mean, I was in the housing business. While I was in business, that was my business. And we saw very, very low prices, even as recently as 20 years ago. Housing forms are going to shrink. They're already downtown building very, very small condominium apartments. And the rental market, of course, is still very active around here. Some of my children have gone to East Vancouver, where the prices are a lot more affordable. Lots of people will go to the suburbs where the prices are lower, but I always caution them to be careful, because the cost of commuting from your lower cost house will add up, and the cost of running a car and the cost of the time that you may spend an hour driving.
Well, it is a fantastic place to live. I've lived here most of my life, and been lucky enough to do some traveling around the world, and I can see why so many people want to live here, because it is clean, it is beautiful, and there's a great education system. But and what is great as well is it's a walkable, bike-friendly community in high-density areas. I live in 1,750 square feet in Kettlewell, just north of here. And we have 4 bedrooms, and it's tight, but we do enjoy it. And so in Vancouver, the growth moving forward to create more affordability has got to be density in commercial areas. We need to create affordable housing for the young people can buy, and the seniors can buy, so when they downsize, they don't have to leave the neighborhoods. So there's been some issues in Dunbar with these debates, and we need to continue to think outside the box and create sort of more ergonomically friendly small spaces so people can live full lives in smaller spaces and stay in the communities upon which they grew up in and age where they live.
We will now move on to our rebuttal.
I think if you hear say thinking outside the box multiple times, it's kind of like a party game you could play. So we're not going to say thinking outside the box a million times up here today.
Well, I guess, like I say, I'll never turn down the chance of talking to a microphone. Once again, we come back to the issue of thinking about your future. If you're inclined to stay in Vancouver, you can start to think about, gee, if I'm 30 and I'm looking for a place to live, where's it going to be? And Mr. Clarke's pointed out that there are lots of opportunities in East Vancouver. One thing that our government did very well was to put together the Canada Line, $2.3 billion to build the Canada Line. I suspect all of you use it regularly. I use it to go to work every day. And that provides the opportunity to get good transit back and forth, and there's more housing being built along the Canada Line. That's where the future lies.
Yes, but the problem is not when they're 30. The problem is going to be when they're 24, or even when you leave your parents' homes and go to university. So we need some solutions in place now, because the problem is very pointed. And in 30, by the time we get to 30, it'll be a very vicious problem indeed.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share, just on that front,
I'm sorry, we gotta move on.
We're all done on that one? Okay.